Okay, if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on social media. All the links will be down below in the description. But let's get right to it. So I watched this film that was recommended to me called The Chase. Now, this movie came out in 2017, and it's a South Korean film. It has an 85% rating by Google, which was awesome. It was on Netflix, and I was able to watch it with subtitles. They didn't have an English dub when I selected it. Now, this movie, I'll give you a brief description. It says a number of people in this guy's small town turn up dead. A cantankerous landlord receives a visit from a detective hoping to solve the murder. It's been a cold case for over 30 years. It did 1.4 million at the box office. Came out in November 2017. Kim Hong-sun, I believe that's how you say it, or Kim Hong-sun, was the director of the film. And I have to say, The Chase was really good. I enjoyed it. So first of all, and I find that this seems to be the case with a lot of these films that come out of South Korea, they seem to be like multiple movies wrapped up in one film. So when it first starts off, Yoon-Sik Bak, I believe that's how you say his name, Baek, plays the landlord Sim. And it felt like the movie Grumpier Old Men or Grumpy Old Men. You know, you've got this guy, he's the landlord, and he doesn't address people by who they are. He calls them by name according to the address that they live at. So there's this one young woman in the film, and he calls her room 205 because it's an apartment building. He owns multiple apartments and houses. And so he also has access. He's got keys to everybody's place. He's real nosy. But he's always trying to, collect the rent. And he's grumpy, and everyone tries to avoid him. And when he approaches people, they're just like, "You're an old geezer," and they just make fun of him. But yeah, he's a real pain in the butt, this guy. So one day he's walking, and there's been some murders in the town, and he runs up to this other guy who he keeps trying to collect the rent from. Who seems to be like a deadbeat, really isn't a deadbeat. He's an undercover detective that's been on this cold case, and he's getting close to figuring out who this guy is that murdered a bunch of people 30 years prior. And but you don't know this. You think this guy has money, but he's not paying the landlord on time, and because he's got women over at the house, and they're always preparing meals. But in the end, you find out that this guy was a detective, and unfortunately he dies as well, this detective. So another former detective who was partners with the guy that was just killed starts questioning the landlord, because the landlord had made a key and got into the room, and there was like a they had a scuffle together until he figured out that he was the landlord, because the one detective guy thought the landlord was the killer. And make a long story short, they start to they team up together to try to solve this problem, this crime. But what happens is, again, this movie's full of twists. So there's somebody murdering people in the town, and they're doing it in the exact same way that this other guy did it 30 years prior. When they finally catch up to the bad guy, he gets taken out by another bad guy. And I'm spoiling this movie, but it's been out since 2017. And so right away you're like, what just happened? Because you think they found the guy who's the murderer. Well, he was a copycat doing the same murders as the guy who originally did it. When the guy figured out somebody was doing the same murders that he did, he killed the guy. And so you're like, what? So when the detective and the landlord, you think they got the guy, they didn't get the guy. And then the detective thinks it's somebody else. It becomes this whole whodunit. But then the major twist is the detective is like suffering from Alzheimer's. So then the landlord doesn't know if the detective was telling the truth the whole time. And when they finally track down the guy they believe was the killer, this actor Ho-Jin. Oh my God, you hated this guy. Like you weren't sure about him in the beginning, but then when he's revealed as the killer from 30 years ago, oh my God, you want this guy to die. You definitely want this guy to die. He was doing some horrible stuff to people. He was a doctor, and he would like inject them with stuff and paralyze them. And so he's been carrying around what you thought in the whole movie was this doctor pushing a woman in a wheelchair, which was his wife, and he was taking care of his wife. It wasn't his wife. It was a victim. But he had paralyzed her, so she was mute. So all she could do was go, and, you know, she couldn't tell the detectives that this guy was the killer. And you're just like, oh my God. And then he's so evil, this bad guy. And let me just say one thing. The guy who is the landlord is like in his, I would say, 60s. So he's an old man. So he's trying to run after people and trying to do things, but he's like an older man, and he's having a tough time keeping up, even with the detective who was like in his late 40s, early 50s, the one that had Alzheimer's. So, you know, they take the detective who they think has Alzheimer's, and they put him back in like an institution, but he really was on the track. It almost reminded me of True Detective, the last season that just came out, where the one detective was having amnesia or Alzheimer's, and he was trying to solve this one last crime. It was kind of the same thing, but this guy really was on the trail of a killer. They finally tracked the guy down, and of course, mayhem ensues. The one detective gets shot in the gut, and you think he's gonna die. And I mean, there's all these twists and turns. But I'll say that even in the end, like when the detective figures out it's this guy, knows it's this guy, and he wants to crush his head with a rock, the landlord, you know, he was grumpy in the beginning, but throughout the film, he became more sympathetic to the people that were renting from him. One, because they were dying, and this plot was unfolding. But one of the girls that had been kidnapped and almost killed was getting ready to be injected and be paralyzed, just like the other one. And that was the one person he called Room 205. And he wouldn't refer to her as her real name. But you like this landlord. Like in the beginning, you're like, this guy's a jerk. He's totally a jerk. I could see why the town people hide from him when he's around and everything. But as you get towards the film, you absolutely love the landlord by the end of the film, and you're rooting for the landlord to save the day and solve the caper. And he finally does, and he gets through all the stuff and saves room 205, which is this young girl. And in the hospital bed, you know, where he's recovering, and the girl, you know, shows up to thank him, and he actually calls her by her real name and doesn't call her room 205 anymore. And the detective that you thought got shot and was going to die, he survived, and you know, he had a clear mind, and I don't know if it necessarily cured his Alzheimer's, but you know, he was able to solve this one last caper and put this 30-year, because it wasn't really Alzheimer's. I think he had a fear. He froze when he first saw the killer 30 years ago, and didn't go chase him down while his partner was killed, or a victim was killed, stabbed, and all that. But so many twists and turns in this movie. And again, it was like it ended, and then you thought it was over, and then no, it keeps going. And then the twist with the Alzheimer's, you're like, what? Because that's like 3/4 of the way through when you find out this detective has Alzheimer's and doesn't really know if this whole thing is made up. And the landlord's like, you made this up. This is all in your head. and then but it all unfolds. And again, really great writing. And it looked like there was quite a few writers on this. There were 3 writers, Yu Gap Yao, Park Wan Jin, and Lee Chan Young. They were the 3 writers who wrote the screenplay. I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I see that the director of this movie has done a couple of other films, some that are on Netflix, so I may try to check those out. The director's name is Kim Hong-sun. I think I said it earlier, but he did a fantastic job with this movie. Of course, you know, the cinematography was beautiful. The everything, the emotion, the way they used light in certain scenes to convey emotion, just really great stuff. When it got scary and people were getting murdered, it turned into a true stalker horror film. That's what I mean by, like, they throw all these different genres in the film. You know, boom, 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 boom. You know, 1 minute it's a comedy like Grumpy Old Men. The next it's a murder mystery like the movie Scream, you know, with this guy that's going around killing people. And then, you know, it's like the Zodiac Killer with the copycat thing going on. And then, you know, the Alzheimer's twist. And then, you know, I just really enjoyed this movie. So if you get a chance, it's on Netflix right now. It's called The Chase. And again, this is a South Korean film. You can watch it with English subtitles. It's well worth reading the subtitles. They don't bother me. Sometimes you can find a movie where it's got the English dub with it. But for this film, it wasn't available on the app. But seriously, and it looks like the director, he had Best New Director Film Award from the Blue Dragon Film Awards. And he was nominated for a Best New Director from the Grand Bell Award. You know, it's an award-winning director, and he did a fantastic job. I enjoyed this film. So have you guys seen The Chase? Came out in 2017. Let's talk about it in the comments section. Don't forget to share this video on social media. Subscribe to my channel. Also, I have a Patreon that I do exclusive content on. If you want to roll over to that, the links and all are in the description below, along with all my social media links. You should follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed this video review, and we will see you on the next one.